In 1792, George Vancouver would explore the Pacific Northwest, and in doing so, create one of my biggest pet peeves. In the world, there are 5 things named after George Vancouver, 4 of which are in the Northwest and 1 which is in New Zealand. And it's the 4 in the Pacific Northwest that I really want to talk about. There's a mountain in New Zealand, but that's cool with me in my book. So what places bear Vancouver's name around here? There's a city in Washington, a city in British Columbia, an island in British Columbia, and then a mountain that straddles the Yukon-Alaska border. Now, why is this annoying to me? Well, I mean, just think of what the average person from Vancouver, Washington has to go through every day. So where are you from? Washington. Oh, cool, I'm from the East Coast too. No, Washington State. Easy mistake. What city? Vancouver. Everybody knows that's in Canada. Nope. Well, that is overly confusing, but hey, I think I actually have a friend who lives around there. Seattle area? Vancouver's actually more in the Portland area. That is no way to live life. And to make matters worse in Canada, Vancouver Island isn't where Vancouver the city is located, which is just horribly confusing. And as an American, I cannot accept that my lack of geography skills is the problem. This needs to be changed. So the solution seems obvious. We need to rename some stuff. But what should they be renamed? And more importantly, who should keep the name Vancouver? Well, let's start with the 2 cities. There's a couple things to note. First off, Vancouver is the capital of British Columbia and one of the largest cities in all of Canada. Meanwhile, Vancouver, Washington is less large. It's not a small city by any means, but it's certainly less geographically important. Vancouver, Washington was, though, named before Vancouver, British Columbia. So that's kind of a point in their favor. Alas, though, I think Vancouver is a name much more iconically placed to the one in Canada, as it's got like a couple million people living around it. So they probably should keep the name. So that leads to the question, what do we call Washington's Vancouver? Well, there's a couple ideas. The simplest one being, change its name to Fort Vancouver. The city's actually thought about doing that before because they agree it's confusing. But if that's not what you want, you could also name it after what people called it before Vancouver showed up. Now, feel free to tell me in the comments just how horribly I pronounced this, but in Chinook, the land was referred to as Skitsotoho, and in Klickitat, it was Alisikas. I personally think all 3 of those would work pretty great, though Fort Vancouver's probably the easiest one to actually make happen. So that's one part of the Vancouver names fixed. But let's move on to the island. Now, this one was a little bit harder to get some good names for. It sort of used to be called something else as far as I can tell, and that was Quadras and Vancouver's Island. Quadra was another explorer of the area, and Spain and Britain decided to jointly name Vancouver Island Quadras and Vancouver's Island to show their general friendliness. The friendliness didn't last forever though, and when Britain took over the island completely, they basically just dropped Quadras from it, and now it's Vancouver Island. So logic would follow, you could instead just make it Quadras Island instead of Vancouver Island. Alternatively, you could try naming it after some of the large cities on it, for instance Victoria or Nanaimo. Though Victoria is probably not a good option because there already is a Victoria Island in Canada, it's just on the opposite side of the continent. So those are my ideas for how to make the Northwest just a little bit less confusing. Feel free in the comments to just tell me how horrible my takes are, and also if you have any ideas of what you think they should be called. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and stuck around to the end, you might as well consider subscribing.